By the way, even I misunderstood Michael Sagas's statements on selling Nvidia on this. The hyperscalers are the ones who might be overly aggressive. Perhaps these businesses, with the exception of Apple, are overly aggressive. You're talking about JP Morgan's strategist. I am aware that he wrote a last letter that, in some respects, was devastating because it asked the emperor if he had enough clothing. I raised this idea from the very beginning of the event, and it was being questioned. Will they want to fight back again? Will there be a well? Yes, listen, as our viewers are aware, we keep returning to the same themes because they are crucial to the market. Generative AI, of course, and the applications that will be possible. In terms of actually having a return that made sense for this number, however, this concept has been around for a while because that Sequoia guy actually wrote that note quite a while ago, simply saying, this is the number that I'm coming up with, and this is what you would need to see in terms of generative. However, this morning I met with Jeff, the fantastic CEO, and I mentioned that since it's Medtronic's 75th birthday, and it's their 75th birthday, and Jeff mentioned colonoscopies, which is one of the things he indicated that I believe is quite important. He added that they have a standard version and an AI version, and that the conventional version is missing 5 out of the 50% of malignant polyps that the AI version finds. We continue to receive these fairly unique samples from Medtronic. There was a scientific research published in Nature the other week that discussed the topic of, wait a second, maybe we're mapping out all the ways that cancer could be caused. David, perhaps we simply aren't useful enough. I believe Jensen W. would say, guys, we've had this since Sequoia did that note. If you were present. No. But who doesn't think this is going to change the world? After all, we don't talk to anyone. And I know that we do occasionally speak to one another outside of this set. Isn't what they all say the same? I've never met a CEO, but I'm curious about how long it takes, what the final beneficiaries are, and what form it takes. Again and again, a lot of people do bring up topics like drug discovery and how you can significantly reduce the time it takes to develop a new medication, as well as what you mentioned with regard to colonoscopies and Medtronic. Jim, however, would our investors be in a type of wait-and-see attitude till we begin to see these consumer applications? The consumer doesn't appear to understand the value proposition of the consumer AI PC anymore, and nobody seems to believe in it as much as we did. Why not to some extent? I mean, I don't really need a PC to use ChatGPT. I can do it myself, correct. To do it yourself, you don't need a computer, I understand. Go back to the notion that we must be concerned about AI because everyone else is, David. The reason I say this is because is there a point at which people are comfortable not selling Nvidia? Did we make it today? Last week, Nvidia was severely impacted. David, Nvidia is still the Verdun of World War I. Despite the fact that people claim the chart is fine, you're speaking. I know you switch wars all the time. The cash-on-get wars are at issue. Nvidia is up 3% and 12% and 6% of course. Now, David, if you watch the volume, it trades like GameStop did. There are numerous zero-day Z30 choices available. Yes, I am aware that the children enjoy playing zero-day. Oh, Grandpa just said, is what they'll say, and all I can reply is, I wish I were Grandpa. Yes, they alternate between placing their wagers on tonight's game and FanDuel. Why not then? Me, the over on Nvidia's zero-day options. You are therefore a total anachronism. No one is affected by you in any way. I simply sit next to you, David, so I'm not sure what it says for me, but it's a knockout. I don't currently have Nvidia installed, but I play daily fantasy here every day. I started Cooper Kupp, Richardson, and Saquon Barkley. Do you realize how amazing I am? Actually, I didn't do that. However, the truth is that Nvidia is unable to complete. For Nvidia, the long knives are out. By the way, Al, it seems like the demand will decline for them right away regardless of when you purchase one. Spending on the SP, however, will decrease. People detested Hawk and Tam, and we also had impressive numbers from Broadcom. Hawk watches the show, and David was despised. Hawk, I can only think, holy cow, where did people want to sell that? After watching the show. Never mind, nothing like that will happen again. That was a super Mick-like decline. It is important to note that Broadcom's stock has increased by 60% in the past 12 months. Yes, my trail trust was in the $800 billion, or nearly $800 billion, market capitalization club, I believe. You know, it was similar to Berkshire. The $800 and $900 are not included. No, they need, you know why, they say. Because when you go to DraftKings, they actually give you $200 billion. You can get it's called the It Gets Points, right? You watch TR Kings for where stocks are going. Murderer, I have no idea what you're discussing. Now, let's talk about chips, which are at the heart of the AI frenzy. The SMAG Semi ETF has dropped more than 20% from its recent highs. Do you call it a bear market? If we're still at the beginning of the AI boom, then why are the chips doing so, and what may get them going again? Simon Modi has such details. A lot of focus lately about how utilities are outperforming the chips year to date. Are diversifying the trade correctly, Kelly? Yes, the generative AI trade is obviously losing pace during the previous 1 month. If you look at names like Nvidia, AMD, Broadcom, these are the main players, right, that specialize in the software and hardware to power the hyperscalers with their AI models. You'll notice those stocks are down approximately 22% or more from their respective highs. And then there's the AI server names like Supermicro, Dell, HP Enterprise, also under pressure, as are the high memory bandwidth stocks like Micron, which is down roughly 45% from its 52-week high. Mizuho's Jordan Klein writes to clients that buy-side interest in semiconductor equities has worsened as of late. Sentiment is not holding up, and that interest is developing in software equities. Speaking of software, over the last 2 months, companies listed under the ticker IGV have fared far better than chips, thanks in part to Adobe, which is scheduled to release its earnings later this week. As you can see, shares have beaten the sell side, but investors are still extremely optimistic about the massive chip company Nvidia today. Morgan Stanley reiterates its rating of overweight. Joseph Moore, an analyst, claims that worries about gross margins are exaggerated. According to him, macro risk and its possible influence on capital expenditures pose a greater threat. However, Goldman's technology team thinks the market needs clarification on 3 factors in order to really get the Gen AI trade back in action. Nvidia's 2026 financials, additional proof that AI models can be made profitable, and that costs can be covered. Guys, I believe it's clear, I'm not sure where you stand on this, that the thrill and all of the upside of, if you want to call it a bubble, whatever you want to call it this year, is that we've passed that point. The only thing left to speculate about is whether it's merely a sideways correction. For some of these more well-known names, is there more to come? Totally. Nvidia was rather explicit when it stated, "Look, the Blackwell chip needs to perform the way it's done. After all, you have already discounted really high earnings for the next 2 to 3 years. In addition to production problems, there is a demand. As investors in semiconductors, double ordering has been the largest thing we have to constantly keep an eye on for years. Precisely, and did Google, Apple, and Meta place too many orders in case they didn't receive what they needed? You read articles about the chips being in China and the rest of the world, and then all of a sudden they all pull back together and say, "Oh, we don't really need these." Yes, you own Nvidia, and it's a fantastic chip, but I do believe that you should own it in moderation. It has fulfilled all of our requests. The following leg's growth is now absolutely necessary and perhaps